Questions presented during the following program were compiled by media representatives from the Cupertino Courier, Cupertino Neighbor, and the San Jose Mercury News. The City of Cupertino does not take responsibility for the editorial content. The City Channel presents Meet the Media, a 5-part series featuring each of the candidates running for Cupertino City Council. As part of our ongoing coverage of the Cupertino City Council race, this series has been designed as an up-close and personal introduction to each candidate. Tonight's featured candidate is incumbent Marshall Goldman. Mr. Goldman, a 43-year-old electrical contractor and current City Council member, will be interviewed by Mike Betz, editor for the Cupertino Courier, Annie Belt, reporter for the Cupertino Neighbor, and Michael Cronk, reporter for the San Jose Mercury News. City Council candidate Marshall Goldman's interview now begins with a question from Mike Betz.
Mr. Goldman, good evening. Or good afternoon.
Nice to be here.
Thank you. You've identified traffic reduction as one of the key issues in this year's campaign. How would you reduce traffic in Cupertino? And you've also identified light rail as a must for Cupertino. How feasible would light rail be for Cupertino?
Well, first of all, I think that traffic is a very significant issue. We're going to have the opening of Highway 85. I think that is going to significantly reduce the traffic if we're able to do something with our roadway system that will essentially make the commuters stay on the freeway as opposed to using our local streets. I think that's one of our major problems. The other way that we're going to address traffic is that we're requiring the companies to reduce their traffic before they can expand, reduce their existing traffic before they expand. I think that's very significant. The third thing is that we have been successful in getting Stevens Creek Boulevard and the Deanza Boulevard to be designated as a light rail corridor, and it's in the existing Measure A funding for the next 20 years. What our priorities ought to be in Cupertino is to get that development of light rail moved up. I think that it's ridiculous to say that it'll take 20 years to build a mass transportation system when, we went to the moon in 9 and we won World War II in 4. So I think we can do a lot of improvements on that, but I think that'll reduce it as well as some of the other ideas.
Thank you.
Some people have commented or criticized the general plan, saying that it allocates too much growth to too few companies, especially Tier 2. Do you have any comments on that? Well,
I think that the people that have criticized that really don't understand the allocation of space. The major companies have been allocated the mitigated growth, which they cannot get unless they reduce traffic first in their existing facilities. Secondly, there are a number of facilities that have been leased by major companies, specifically Apple Computer, which is downsizing, and there's approximately 500,000 square feet of space on the market right now that can be leased by smaller businesses. So we don't have to build new buildings for small businesses, as some may suggest. We just have to make sure that a business development is handled in a rational way, and I think the new general plan does that.
Mr. Goldman, indeed, discussions of the growth policies in the general plan have been dominating so far the campaign. Perhaps it'd be good for you to talk about what you see as the other significant issues in terms of city services or anything else you think people should be aware of and you'd like to work with in your next term.
Well, I think the most significant issue is the fact that we have put a stop to the development of the hillsides. I mean, we've created a very strong policy that will limit future development of our hills and our open space, number one. So I think that's a very significant issue that needs to be understood as I understand it and needs to be enforced as I will enforce it. Another major issue, I think, is finding a way to enhance the funding of our library. Library hours have been significantly cut back, and we need to find a new method of dealing with that. Last night we made some steps in that direction, but they're just temporary. We're working on a long-term plan for that. The third thing is I think we have to address the issue of safety in our schools and in our streets. We recently had a decision where we limited the hours of the Taco Bell. We didn't go as far as I would have liked to have done. I think that more and more safety is going to be a serious problem, especially for our children. I think we need to address it. I think we need to put together a task force of sheriff and authorities and the schools and the city to come up with some specific programs that will improve the safety of our kids. And I think those are the ones that come to mind right now.
Thank you. Mr. Goldman, you mentioned the Library Commission meeting last night. One of the possible revenue sources mentioned at that meeting was a documentary transfer tax for homeowners. As you're aware, it's in the courts now. If the courts were to come through and say cities could charge that fee, would you approve it?
Well, I think that what we talked about in the Library Commission meeting was an innovative way to look at funding for our libraries. And we talked about a matching funds program, which had never been tried, whereby there would be a foundation set up and the city would match funds up to a certain amount to fund the library. The other issue with the library that most people don't understand is that the property taxes that are contributed by the city of Cupertino are towards the library are much greater than the actual funding that the city gets based on a formula that was set up a long time ago. And what I would advocate is that the city reevaluate the funding of the library and look at ways that we could better control how much money we're contributing and where that money goes. I think that before we look at any new type of taxes is the first step.
Great, thank you.
Let's see, you were kind of acknowledged as one of the leaders in passing the hillside ordinance that the city has, which has greater restrictions on building densities in a lot of the hills. And the diocese has come in with a lawsuit, which is now suspended, but they are seeking to get more development than that ordinance would allow on their land. If the council allows the diocese to build greater density than under the hillside ordinance, would that weaken the new law?
Well, let's address first the issue of the lawsuit. The diocese was encouraged to bring the lawsuit against the city by some members who were weaker in their support for the hillside policy, and current events have shown that support continuing to weaken. I think the number one issue first in the city is that we have elected officials who are strong in their support for the hillside policy, so that the city is in the best possible position to determine any eventual solution for development there. Secondly, I think that we have to be very careful as to what decisions we make with respect to how they would impact other areas. Kaiser, remember, when I first was elected, 6 months later came in and said they wanted to build 3,000 homes there. So we're not just dealing with the diocese property, we're dealing with the overall density of the hillsides. The hillside policy is a strong policy. It's the law. It was voted on by all the members of the council. They all agreed to it, and our city attorney repeatedly has said that it is legal. So I think that first of all, any member of city government should act in a way that puts the city in the strongest possible position vis-a-vis any lawsuit, any challenge to the law. Secondly, any decision that we make with respect to that policy or other land use policy should be looked at in terms of what precedent it will set for future properties. And I'm very concerned that of the precedent that we might set if we weaken the hillside policy.
Let's take the budget for a moment. The last 3 or 4 budgets, in adopting them, the city has dipped into its cash reserves to fund major capital improvement projects, including over $1 million this fiscal year. Do you favor continuing to draw on the reserves, or looking at other cuts cuts and programs to balance expenditures and revenues if the situation arises?
Well, I think that first of all, you have to look at the city finances are very complicated, so it takes a lot of experience to understand them. The city has, with respect to operating funds and operating expenditures, has had a balanced budget over the last 15 years, with the exception of 1 year, which was last year, and we had approximately $85,000, which was a deficit as far as the operating expenditures were concerned. Time to time, we have used reserves to fund capital expenditures. The program that you're talking about this year was a result of the Measure T bond issue, which was passed by 68% of the voters, and I supported that, and we ended up purchasing Blackberry Farm and Fremont Older School site, and also working with the schools to preserve 8 additional school sites from future commercial development. As a matter of fact, with respect to our funds, our general fund has increased over the last 4 years from approximately $15 million to $18 million now. Now, those numbers still, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to be vigilant about it. But I think that we've made commitments. We made commitments in Measure T, where the city needs to fulfill their commitments. In the long run, it'll save us money. Our reserves have remained the same. The general fund has increased, so I think that we're in a relatively good position, especially having been in a recession, for the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay, Mr. Goldman, I kind of want to follow up on that just for a minute, but kind of apply it more to the downtown area. We've got the design charrette coming up in November, where residents will come forward and take a look at possible designs for the Grand Boulevard concept or the heart of the city.
Right.
If the council was to find a design they liked, would the city have enough money to pay for that?
Well, I think you need to turn it around just in the first place. The concept of the design charrette is to give the community the chance to decide on what design that they like. This would be a 20-year plan. So it's not going to happen unless, number one, the community feels that both in theory and what they want, and I think most people would like to have a community identity, but in practice, in terms of how expensive it is, how it's funded, how it's going to occur over time, we have built a consensus to do that. It's not going to be something that the council can impose on the community. The community has to want it. What we've done with the design charrette is given the community the opportunity to decide. And we've brought together some of the best people in the world to give the community input on what would be the practical considerations, both in terms of urban design, in terms of architecture, and in terms of cost. If we come up with a plan that the community wants, the community also is going to have to tell us, how they think it best be paid for. I think that the issue of money will be more of a timing issue. It can occur over the next 20 years, and basically the developers, people that build the buildings, are going to pay for it. If the community wants it to occur faster, then they're going to have to express that wish.
Thank you.
Candidate Don Burnett was concerned about traffic along Stevens Creek Boulevard becoming intolerable if a heart of the city design is created with some of the things that are currently included in the concept, such as all the industrial growth and a lot of the housing. What is your response?
Well, I think would be more interested in is what Mr. Burnett's feelings are about retaining the major companies. I think that's a bigger issue than the issue of than his lack of understanding, I would say, as far as the traffic is concerned. Mr. Burnett served on the Grand Boulevard Committee, and frankly, we went back and forth. His opinion as to whether it would work went back and forth. So I don't know, what it is today. I happen to think that the traffic is a serious issue on any design that we have, but the problem that we have with respect to design is the fact that our streets are designed primarily to serve commuter traffic, and we have very high-speed traffic going through our city. We have two huge streets, De Anza Boulevard and Stevens Creek Boulevard, that effectively block people from getting from one neighborhood to another. So, if we want to just continue to be dominated by the automobile, let's not do anything. I mean, it's easy not to do anything. The issue is, do we want to look at different ways of changing the character of our streets so that we would primarily have local traffic and we could beautify them, as opposed to just using commuter traffic. I think the commuter traffic ought to be on the freeways. That's what the freeways were designed for. I think the local streets ought to be our own streets. And I think that's the approach that we have to take, and we have to be somewhat creative in doing that.
In regards to the amount of expansion or growth that's allowed to three large computer firms in town, again, to reiterate, are you saying that was done to quote, keep these firms doing business in Cupertino?
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that these companies came to us and said, over the next 20 years, we would like to grow here. We said that, look, if you're going to do that, you have to deal with some of the problems that you're creating. And if you don't do it, we're not going to let you do it. And the issue was whether or not we wanted to retain them or not. As a result, we have come up with some specific programs that will reduce the traffic that these new facilities generate. The companies have to reduce their traffic in their existing facilities prior to being able to build anything new. So this is more than any other community has demanded of any companies. Secondly, the companies have to build housing for their employees, sharing their land, so that housing will not impact other neighborhoods, and that also will reduce traffic. That, again, is more than any other city has ever done. And the net effect will be that the retaining the companies will create a very small impact on traffic, much smaller than, for example, the expansion of De Anza College or the expansion of the surrounding areas, which is going to raise our traffic level anyway. So I think we've made a balanced decision. It's reasonable. It was a choice. Do we want to keep the companies or not? My view is that we ought to keep them, and we ought to make them take care of some of their problems, and I think the general plan that we've created does that.
Yeah, Mr. Goldman, one of the issues that's come up in this campaign is the equity in terms of general plan amendment hearings. We've heard about the diocesan and Cecil Mann's property as well. Could you clarify your position on that, on the general plan amendment hearing process in terms of them being in June or December? We've heard...
What do you mean, the equity?
In terms of whether or not someone should have to wait till June or put, these hearings are going to be held in December. I'm not really clear on the issues. Could you kind of...
Well, I think that members of the council felt, with respect to Mr. Mahon, that he was aging in years, and that normally we would have his hearing in June. as opposed to December. So that would have been a year from now. And if the council wanted to have a hearing, they felt that it was reasonable because of his age to move that hearing up. The diocese property, with respect to their hearing, they have been granted the earliest possible date required by law. And very frankly, it's questionable as to whether they'll get the environmental impact report that's required ready by that time anyway. So, when they're ready, the city is going to be ready.
Okay, thank you.
If you could be sure you would be elected and you could accomplish one thing in the next 4 years as a council member or take a leading role in accomplishing, what would that be?
Raise the level of standard of politics in Cupertino to a higher level than we have right now. Bring the community together. Quit the divisive the concept of pitting one side against the other. I believe very strongly that Cupertino is a very fine community with many diverse groups. And during the 4 years that I've been there, I have listened to all the groups and I tried to give them a stake in a say in the decisions. I think we need to do more. I think that as members of the council, we need to work together better as a team. We need to encourage all the groups in the community to provide input, but also to recognize that, you're not going to get everything. But because you didn't get everything doesn't mean that you didn't get a lot. If you look at the general plan, it was a 3-year process of compromise. And very frankly, everybody had a give in it. And yet I think we came out with a very good document. I mean, the Mercury said it was a model for the future. So I somebody thought it was good. But I think we need to go further. We still need to build in Cupertino a climate of trust, a climate of integrity. We should be the leader of Silicon Valley. In a lot of ways we are, but I think we can do a much better job. And that would be one of the things that I'd like to see us do.
The City of Cupertino would like to thank City Council candidate Marshall Goldman and media panel guests Annie Belt, Mike Betz, and Michael Cronk for their participation in this program. Election Tuesday is November 2nd. Vote for the 3 candidates best suited to serve on Cupertino City Council. And keep watching the City Channel for special City Council election programming. Throughout October, we'll be broadcasting this 5-part Meet the Media series, in addition to Meet the Candidate segments featuring each candidate's political platform, tape coverage of the October 12th Candidates Forum, and our live election night special. Refer to your free special election edition of the City Channel program schedule, now available at City Hall, the library, Quinlan Community Center, and the TCI Cable office on Imperial Avenue.